Hi guys, this is Nadia Hilker. I'm playing Magna on The Walking Dead, and you guys are listening to The Walking Dead Talk Through. I hope you guys enjoy this podcast, and I'm sending all my love. Bye!
Hello, my name is Cassie McClincy. I play Lydia on The Walking Dead, and you're listening to The Walking Dead Talk Through. Yeah!
Hey there guys, I'm Callan McAuliffe, and you're listening to The Walking Dead Talk Through on Talk Through Media.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Survivors, welcome to episode number 104 of The Walking Dead Talk Through. I'm Brian.
And I'm Mark.
And tonight, we will be covering Season 10, Episode 5, What It Always Is. But before we get started, we've got just a little bit of feedback for last episode. So let's just play Simon and Rick.
We can talk about it. Done talking. Time to listen.
That's, of course, Season 10, Episode 4, Silence the Whisperers. I don't think I said that. All right, so we got something through email from Bernard. And since we don't know where Bernard is, we say Bernard from the internet. And he says, the episode is called Silence the Whisperers to throw us off before we watch. In the town, they want to silence Lydia, so silence the Whisperer. And that is similar to what Jason from the Walking Dead cast took it when I talked to him. I don't think he talked about this directly last week on his episode, but he and I were talking, and that was his kind of take, that he thought it was more appropriate for them to say silence the whispers, as opposed to whisperers. So, All right. We got one from Megan. You want to read that one?
Sure. Megan from Pennsylvania says, thanks for the warm reception on my first call. Been listening a few weeks and have yet to figure out all the sauce categories. Big laugh out loud. We'll try to throw some sauces at you soon. And thanks, Megan, for doing that.
Yeah, and I kind of explained the sauces on the Facebook group, and I'm gonna just take a minute to explain them as we go. Although I don't think the first two need much explanation, so I will skim through that. But I figured that maybe there's some other people that are out there that don't get our sauces and why there are only 4. There are only 4 because I say there's only going to be 4. And I had to put my foot down when it was around the time you started, I think. We started getting like a plethora of sauces being thrown at us. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing more than 4. That's it.
That makes sense, though. Be way too many
otherwise,
sauces.
I thought the show would turn into just sauces. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to extend the metaphor anymore than we already have. So, Ken from Chicago had something, I think it was maybe 2 episodes back. I don't know. But we found it today. He says, this was on Twitter. Michonne stopped Carol from taking a shot at Alpha because Beta or others might unleash the full horde on the communities. And that is, well, I don't know if she knew that at the time, though. I don't think she put 2 and 2 together until the following episode. So I don't think at the time she fully realized that, but maybe she did. I don't know. What's your take on that?
I think a retaliation was thought in her thought process at that point. But yeah, I don't think she realized that there was a herd, because did Daryl at that point show her? I forget. I know
Show
he
her
showed
what?
Carol. I know he showed Carol where he showed the herd,
Mm-hmm.
but not Michonne.
I think she knew, though.
I think so too.
Yeah.
It's kind of implied.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to this week's episode, season 10, episode 5, which is titled What It Always Is. It is written by co-executive producer and new to the show this season, Eli Journay. And as I like to do, I looked up his credits for this week, since this is the first time he is ever writing anything on The Walking Dead. First of all, he signed a development deal recently with AMC. Some earlier this year, he's supposedly working on a sci-fi comedy show for AMC with Rainn Wilson. And of course, you may know him from The Office, but I know him mostly for being Harry Mudd on Star Trek Discovery. He is the creator of the series Son of Zorn, and he's also worked on Huge in France, Blunt Talk, which, speaking of Star Trek, that was the last series that Patrick Stewart did. I think that was on Stars. And he wrote 7 episodes of Wilfred, so he's obviously got some comedy background, but well, I guess I could see some of the comedy in this week, especially when you talk about nut tapping. Anyway, directed by Laura Belsey, and I was not sure. I think I asked last week if she had directed any Fear episodes. She has directed 1 episode of The Walking Dead from last year. She did season 9, episode 15, The Calm Before. And she has quite a few other directing credits from TV, including 7 episodes of Arrow, 2 episodes of Preacher, Queen of the South with 2 episodes, also Animal Kingdom, SWAT, Bosch, 2 episodes of New Amsterdam, 2 episodes of Genius, Instinct, Bold, The Flash, Criminal Minds Beyond Borders, Chicago Med, Blind Spot, Criminal Minds, Stitchers, Unforgettable, NCIS New Orleans, and Law and Order SVU. So, lots.
Yeah, very broad.
Yeah. All right, the description is as follows. Supplies go missing from Hilltop.
What?
Negan is idolized by an Alexandrian.
It's not true. That's impossible.
Ezekiel holds a secret. And I want to know the secret to that shock horror sound effect. A little inside baseball. For some reason, that sound effect was way distorted, and we had a problem with it. So I don't know what happened, but and I don't know if we'll keep this, but
Leave it in.
Just for Kyle. Maybe that's just for Kyle in editing, because he's probably going to hear this and he'll go, "What the?" but anyway, that's looks like we fixed it now. Anyway, what did you think of What It Always Is? Or is it?
You know what it is.
Well, my rating was 9 out of 10. Negan's got a brand new bat and his original motorcycle jacket.
Well, I was going to mention nut tapping, but somebody decided to mention nut tapping. So instead, I'm going to give it 9 ass pits. All right. So let's move on to listener ratings.
Sure. Well, Steve from Oklahoma City gives it 9.5 out of 10. Ranking walkers on hotness was not a savior pastime.
Which I'm really surprised about. Dieta from Detroit says, I rate this episode 9 out of 10. Little piggies, come out, come out. The big bad wolf has arrived, gonna huff and puff, whacks a walker in the head with, what are those emojis?
Shock emojis, it looks like, but it's got like little poofs on the top of the head.
Yes, little poofs on top. Anyway.
Well, LT from NC says, I'm giving this one 9 out of 10 sausage finger nut slaps.
And Glynis from Toronto gives it 8 out of 10 nicks and nuts. All right, let's move on to Awesome Sauce.
Well, Steve from Oklahoma City says, that Negan kill with the washroom door.
Deanna from Detroit is next. She says, Negan and Lucio reunited and it feels so good. Negan was awesome this whole episode. I slowly see myself getting on the Negan train. Wow.
Yeah.
That's surprising, Deanna.
I'm liking it.
Yeah.
Glennis from Toronto says, Negan's kill of the walker with the garrote and then pulling his head off and then squishing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I had that in my Awesome Sauce. And I also mentioned the viscera splash that we also got on the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What do you have for Awesome Sauce?
Well, this week I'm kind of late because everybody got all the good stuff. So
yeah.
So I'll only give it a couple, but mine would be Negan showing that human side of him with the kid, just being like a teacher, like he was a kind of like a father figure, just him being a person. But then at the end, having to kill Brandon because Brandon was a crazy pants fan that kind of corrupted, you know?
I wonder if his father was one of the Polaroid people.
Possibly.
Because the idolization there definitely seemed to be a thing.
Yeah, garbage pail person.
Yeah. Yeah.
The next little bit I would have would be Aaron's hand out to Gamma, how he hands out the bandages, showing that he wants to understand the Whisperers as people, but seeing if that will work with talking to one-on-one with them and helping one out. Hopefully it doesn't backfire.
Yeah, at first I was wondering, it seemed kind of an odd... I wondered about that, and I didn't think that, Aaron would be a person that would have any, resentment toward the Sabers. But then I forgot that the first one that they killed was Jesus. And of course, we didn't use Tom Payne's intro at the start, so I have to put in a Jesus sound effect. It's mandatory.
We all miss him.
It's not mandatory, but I just thought in honor, I had to find a way of putting one in.
But it's so true, though. That was the first time he ever saw the Whisperers. They killed Jesus, and he had a connection with Jesus, and he puts a hand out to help somebody from a group that killed Jesus. Ugh. Wow.
I got a kick out of rating walkers on hotness. You'd think, I mentioned it before, it seems like something Negan would have done.
Yeah. Yeah, but the fact that he comes back and says, oh, she's a 3.
Yeah. Then I had a couple of things that I wanted to point out, but they weren't necessarily awesome. I just didn't know where to put them. But I wanted to highlight them. Ezekiel and Sadiq opening up about their conditions to each other. There are too many times on this show, and on other shows, but especially this show, that people don't open up, like they don't like say something that they should say. And it was refreshing in a way for them not to. But I would say that one thing that is missing from this that Ezekiel needs is Dr. Pimple Popper. Okay, that seemed very insensitive. And, you know, for the just so we can be clear on this, it's a little bit of gallows humor. My mother died of leukemia, and she had lumps in her thyroid as well as part of that condition. So, you know, I don't mean to make light of it.
Kudos on the effects, though. The goiter was really big.
Yeah.
And
it makes me wonder,
natural.
like, it makes me wonder if, like, they're certainly putting it out there for Ezekiel to die, and he very well could die. We know that he died in the comic book. Spoiler alert. But he could still survive. Who knows? Maybe Sadiq will start reading up some books on, you know, how to excise the thyroid gland or something. Who knows? It's, in other words, he's probably going to die, but
it's a high possibility. And and the fact that honestly, we haven't seen anybody of major character die in the show yet this season.
Right.
And I don't know if they're holding it off too close to the mid-season. So that way, okay, then we exact our revenge or what have you. Or the fact that it's like, all right, we have that break between the mid-season finale and into the mid-season premiere again.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives people time to relax a bit, but hopefully we'll see something.
Yeah, and, you know, going to what I said earlier, and I didn't really describe it, you know, awesome sauce are the things that we thought were awesome in the show. They don't necessarily need to be awesome things, but they're things that we think make the show stand out. And that's why I kind of put the two of them opening up, because I don't think it's really awesome, but it's good from plot perspective. And I would say to this is also kind of fits into that and how it fits into awesome, because this one was another one where I didn't know where to put it, but it seemed most fitting, I guess, in awesome versus, say, what sauce. That one whisperer was only putting up the question about them, you know, sending the whole horde on the you know, Alexandrians and whatnot. And just by bringing it up, he wasn't trying to defy her or, you know, bring up, like, challenge her authority. He just asked the question, and that was enough for her to show how crazy she is. And I thought a lot about, I didn't write it in the notes, but I was looking up today about, like, psychopathy versus sociopathy, like what defines a psychopath versus what defines a sociopath. And I think that this episode had a good example of this. Negan, who I believe is a sociopath, and Alpha, who I believe is a psychopath. And you really get that that here, because I think Negan, as a sociopath, he does bond with people, right? But he clearly, you know, can do some terrible things. And I think in the example of Alpha, she is what you call a true psychopath, because I believe she doesn't bond with people, or if she does, they're just family. And that in what I read about the differences between the two, like, every psychopath is a sociopath, but not every sociopath is a psychopath. So there's big differences there. And, like, he's very Negan is very charismatic, which is typical of psychopath, but psychopaths don't form bonds with people. And I think his actions in this episode show that he has formed bonds with some of the people in Alexandria, like Judith and Lydia. And, even maybe some of the other, like Gabriel, even Aaron, Michonne, like he's built up a little bit of feelings towards them. So
Yes.
Yeah. But
Alpha is pretty much
crazy.
Well, she still uses sociopathic formats with the bonding with her quote unquote group with the Whispers. But yet, she still holds Beta to a leash, but she has to unleash her psychotic episodes in her own mind. Like, she can't utilize them. Like, she had to lie to Beta about Lydia, and that kind of backlashed on her based upon Beta's reaction. Whereas with this, it's like, well, you're not doing what I want. You're talking out of the way she dispatches this Whisper is that she dispatches him because it's not her will, it's not her whim, and she can't control them. So I'm just going to get rid of you at this point. What's she going to do to Gamma if she finds out? Well, obviously in this, she does find out that, the metal-armed man helped Gamma and gave her bandages and took care of her in some way. But what's it going to lead to later on, with Gamma? Is she going to just get rid of Gamma or try to at certain points? So we won't know until that time comes, but it seems like whoever gets in her way of her thought, she kind of gets rid of, regardless whether in her group. And I don't think she has that capability with Beta.
Yeah.
As far as because of physicality and everything else.
Yeah. And the one thing, again, like supposedly a psychopath has a disregard for laws and social mores, which I don't think fit Negan.
No.
A disregard for the rights of others. I don't think that fits Negan either. A failure to feel remorse or guilt. Again, I don't think that fits. And then a tendency to display violent or aggressive behavior. We definitely see that with him. So anyway, I find it interesting though that how they're different. But supposedly a psychopath is cool, calm, and meticulous, and that I think fits Alpha.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. Well, anyway, actually, I don't want to move on because I do want to say this one point that Alpha proved one thing again in this episode, and that she's no nuts. She crazy.
Oh, wow. You took that from way back.
Mark. Yeah. All right, let's move on to Weak Sauce.
You're worthless and weak.
Steve from Oklahoma City says, Dante left the walkie button pushed and the mic is sensitive enough to hear him going to get Carol and pick up her footsteps. Which is true. We hear it and then he just, Ezekiel just turns it off.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it is so sensitive, that's crazy. How loud is that thing?
Pretty loud.
Yeah.
Deanna from Detroit, she says, Kelly out roaming in the woods with her mighty slingshot while suffering from hearing loss. Why? Why would you go off alone and cause an unnecessary search and rescue? Because you don't want to face the truth. That's kind of cold. I think she's just realizing the truth, but
yeah,
I think also she was out there at, well, we'll talk a little bit about this as to why I say this. But I believe that she was out there to get the pig for Magnus' stash. So now, like, I don't know what they were going to do because obviously the pig would go bad. Were they going to turn it into pig jerky or something? I don't know, but still, they'd have to do something with it. But
in order to keep it. Yeah, definitely.
I know. Seems crazy, though.
Yeah. Well, Glennis from Toronto says, Yumiko and Magna, just get over yourselves. Yes, Magna wasn't innocent and did commit murder in revenge for her cousin's death, but she must have spent some time in jail anyway, and that's really immaterial now and pales into significance with what they have had to face in the apocalypse. So they need to put their differences aside and work together and be united to face this Whisperer's threat together. Very true. It seems like why is this coming up now? And I think I brought this up last week. Why are we getting this relationship now when they had last season where they could have slowly built it up of where they came from, where they are, how their relationship came to be in some few comments or scenes. But
I'll give a weak sauce to Yumiko and how every spell checker seems to misspell it. I've noticed this. There was a misspelling in our document, and just inside baseball. All right, Mark, you look like you have one weak sauce.
Yeah, and that would be Brandon. He was just a weak character overall. You have this crazy fanatic that follows Negan, and I found it weak that we didn't find out who got Negan out. We always thought, based upon previews, that it was Brandon, but obviously it wasn't.
Right.
But I guess the character was needed to give us a little of the old Negan back, which is great because we see it at the very end, especially what he says to Beta, saying, "Come on, let's do this, you big giant freak." Yeah. So, we needed that. I guess it needed to push that character over the edge to get us to where we need with him in the story.
Yeah.
But I just didn't like the idea of Brandon. He was annoying.
Yeah, well, to that, I'll say Brandon as well. I had him down, Brandon in general, and specifically, Brandon didn't come to Negan rescue. He didn't do it not once, but twice. And that's lame.
That sounds awesome.
No, it's lame. Everything's lame.
And for that, again, with the explanation, sometimes weak sauce is called lame sauce. Lara termed it that. And once in a while, we'll call it lame sauce, but yeah. It's the things that are weak in the show. Like I said, it's pretty obvious. The next one isn't as obvious, though. Should a Whisperer have pearly whites?
No.
We talked about this, you and I. That scene when Gamma loses her knife, we get a close-up on, Thora Birch's face and with the mask on, of course. And her teeth were whiter than white, which, as a general trait is a nice thing, but it doesn't really fit with the Whisperers to me.
Especially how many years later after the apocalypse.
Like, when was the last time she brushed her teeth?
Exactly.
And another one where I struggled to put it in the right thing. But Daryl's story about rescuing Merle and Merle telling him to go back and get the beer, it was a nice moment, but it didn't seem to fit with the circumstances all that well to me. It just like I say, it didn't describe really what was going on. It was just a nice moment between them. So it felt a little semi-forced. I mean, not the moment was semi-forced, but just the story was semi-forced. The moment felt like a good moment between them, but it just didn't seem to have much to tie in to them searching for Kelly. So
yeah, and the last time that he told a story to someone he got close to like that wound up dead. And that would be Beth. She ended up dead after hearing the story about the tweaker at the funeral home before they burned it down, and she was dragged off to the hospital. So what's in store for Connie after this? Because every time Daryl says, gives a story like that, in real time, not a fake one, not in Carol's mind, somebody is taken off.
I think you're getting the details mixed up there just a little bit. It wasn't the funeral home that got burned down. It was a still.
Really?
The still got burned down.
Yeah, my memory is terrible. You know that.
I know. Well, your long-term memory is good, but
sometimes.
Yeah. Obviously, we found a little weakness there.
There is. I have to be in the moment at that point, I guess.
But the story that you're telling, that is true, and I hope that it's not a foreshadowing of things to come. That every time he tells a little story about himself, and not a hallucinated story like the one told to Carol a couple of episodes back. The truck driver that isn't a truck driver.
Yeah.
Hopefully, anyway, that doesn't mean that Connie's gonna die, but
no.
I have some predictions about upcoming deaths. All right, let's move on to What Sauce.
What?
So Steve from Oklahoma City says, do you think that the record that Magna was listening to was the artist that we all think may have been revealed in Fear the Walking Dead? And I think so, of course, yes, because it was somebody's voice that we all know. And meeting the man myself, yeah, that is his voice.
You met him at Walker Stalker Con?
No, I actually met him at Monster Mania.
Oh, okay.
In New Jersey. Yeah, he was a little reluctant to give out a shout out. But
okay.
Yeah. But Brian was nice enough, and he and chatted a little bit. Yeah, he was a nice guy.
All right. What do you have for What Sauce?
Well, there are so many things that lead me to say, what? The story of characters that will most likely leave. Just the writing alone about certain characters like Connie, Daryl, Ezekiel, and his issues with cancer, and where Gamma and Aaron are in the actual story itself. Where these will, stories will lead to, because it's pretty much in writing anything in any particular episode, it leads into something that will happen later. The comic has ended, but the stories have been changed within the actual show to work for certain characters that are still with us. So I'm certain that Connie will be gone later on, and that's just my prediction.
Yeah, I agree with that. It definitely seems that way.
And Gamma and Aaron's will come to a scenario in some way where either Aaron will try to save her, or she winds up reciprocating because he helped her at one point. Kingy, this may be his last season, mainly for the fact that he's already lived way past his comic book character's counterpart. So, and in the event that we have this with this cancer thing with thyroid cancer, and then making it very prevalent, I have a funny feeling either he's going to take somebody else's death that was depicted in the comic. I'm not going to go into it, but those comic book readers might understand where I'm coming from. Then there's Daryl and Connie, and that could be also mimicked as well as the biggest couple in the comic book, which would be Rick and Andrea. But I'm not going to give away spoilers to the comic. I just want you guys to go out there and read it. It's still out there. The new compendium's out, so go buy it.
Yeah, and like we know, he does a lot in animation, but
well, he just did Teen Titans Go versus regular Teen Titans, so he played Cyborg twice in this new movie that came out recently. So he's still working.
Oh, of course he is. Yeah, I mean, when I look him up, what's coming up right now is largely that he's no longer going to be a part of Walker Stalker Con, which we already kind of knew.
Yeah.
So I'm not seeing anything else, but I know there were rumors about him leaving the show. And like we talked about earlier, it certainly seems like he's going to be leaving the show because, I mean, for obvious reasons.
Oh yeah.
After this episode, I mean, if he's got cancer, unless either it turns out not to be cancer, or like he finds a way to be able to operate on him, it seems to me like he is going to be gone, and probably sooner rather than later. But we have seen other people that we thought had died. Rick. That fit that bill. So we'll see.
Yeah. And we've seen people ail from some sort of real disastrous things like Grace from Fear of the Walking Dead being sick, not being sick. Being sick, not being sick.
Yes. Yeah, you're not dying of cancer, you're pregnant.
Yeah, radiation poisoning, actually. That was radiation poisoning, according to them.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe the cure is Ezekiel just needs to go to Texas. I don't think
Morgan,
it's the same kind of radiation, or drink a bottle of iodine or something. I don't know. These are all stupid things I'm saying. Please don't take any offense to this. As I already described, it's a little bit of gallows humor. Because I did kind of it reminded me of my mom. Sorry, but she passed away 15 years ago, but still. So anyway, it's just a defense mechanism, and I don't mean to offend anybody.
We all have that.
Yeah.
Let me end my last one. That would be, what is with the new bat for Negan? Will we see the old Lucille make a comeback in some way? I hope so, because that Michonne teaser in the trailer was very forthcoming, because that looked exactly like the original Negan bat, like the original Lucille. That looked to me the original big deal, so I'm hoping to see that come back. And he's just utilizing this, and maybe this one gets broken.
Well, it was Michonne that had the bat, not Negan, in the trailer. And like you said, that was clearly the bat. This was clearly not the bat. It didn't have the same finish. The wire wasn't so tightly wound. The top of the bat looked quite a bit different. So, I mean, it clearly wasn't the same bat. And Talking Dead also mentioned the fact that it wasn't the same bat. Hardwick said something about this being Lucille 2, which I agree with. So anyway, still, I think that he will probably get his bat back, or we will see Michonne use it in a similar way. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it definitely wasn't a Louisville Slugger. You didn't see that symbol that's on it. So
right.
Yeah.
Right. Can Sharpies last 10 years without drying out?
Unless they're in bags, I guess. It's like put them in a Ziploc bag.
That was a question that I have. I know that Sharpies tend to last a lot longer than other kind of markers, but when I saw Daryl pull that out, I thought, that's a long time, for it to last like that. Now here's the thing, and this is one of those things where it's like, well, do I put this in weak or do I put this in what? And I didn't explain myself. What sauce are the things that give you pause? The things that make you think that, either I don't really understand why this is, or this is confusing, or not quite there, or I don't know how this is going to fit into things. Is what the what sauce is. But I thought this is a borderline weak what, and this is why tense. Couldn't they have pulled back some trailers back into Hilltop? Like, yeah, they would have to get horse and buggies to do that these days, because they don't have any working automobiles anymore. But you would think that considering that the kingdom people came over before the winter, you would think, or at least during the winter, I guess it was, you'd think that there had been enough months had passed for them to not be intense anymore. Yeah. So I thought that was a little crazy for them to not be intense. And I did not realize last week when the tree fell that it was kingdom people that were still sleeping in tents, because I would have brought this up last week. But yeah, you already mentioned the song on the record player, but yeah, it has to be Ryan Hurst. Has to be.
Yeah.
Brandon left the lug wrench behind on the bus. I watched this more than once to confirm it. So he must have gone back into the bus to retrieve it, to use it on, her name was Amelia, and of course Milo, which, was terrible. But that was one thing that I was like, either this is like a plot point that is wrong, or something that they cut out, or they just didn't feel like they needed to show it. But he did not have that when he came in. So either, like I said, either he went back into the bus and got it, or there's a mistake there. Why would Sadiq and Daryl travel at night, given what's going on? Now, I guess Daryl's motorcycle has a light on it. Okay. But it just seems crazy to travel at night, especially with everything going on. And the last thing I have, again, kind of a weird what sauce, but when Negan's knife broke in the skull of that walker, he said, "You've got to be kidding me." And I thought of,
Are you kidding me?
Because that's what I do. All right. Now, the last thing, which is what we call sad sauce, but people also use it for things that are cute, or that are adorable, or loving, or, look at those two kissing. It's very confusing, and maybe we need to come up with a better sound effect for this, but sad sauce.
Aww. Yeah. And LT from NC says, so Ezekiel has a thyroid tumor. The way he acted makes more sense now, and of course it adds some depth to why he was thinking about jumping. Now the thing will be how this nugget of news plays out.
I didn't even realize that he was wearing a scarf until that moment when he pulled the scarf back.
Yeah.
I didn't see it. And, I know the first time I watched it on my phone, but other viewings, I watched it on my, monitor, and I'm, about a foot away from my monitor. So I still didn't see it until like just before. So it's funny. Dieta had one. She says, same thing. King Ezekiel suffering from thyroid cancer. So are we losing him as well this season? Yeah, I know. He was killed in the comics. I'm just not ready to see him go. I agree.
Same here.
Okay. What you got?
Well, it was sad to see Negan turn back a little, back to the way he was, because I was starting to like that Negan from Alexandria. But it was needed, hence to extend the story and get him back, and just bring back the old Negan to rile up probably within the Whisperer camp. So that way we get the story that we need. And he was
kind of classic though. Classic Negan.
Yeah, the little pig.
Yeah. Yeah. That brought a smile to my face. Definitely.
And I have to agree with both Dieta and LT about King Ezekiel. It's sad. I'm not ready to see him go either, but it's something that it seems to be coming.
Well, the sad part about that for me was that it's a previously treatable cancer. Like, a 98% success rate cancer, a cancer that he watched his grandmother and his father beat, knowing that, unless something extraordinary happens, he's probably going to die from this. And, like, it's just terrible how things have degraded to the point where, modern medicine really isn't a thing that can happen anymore. Like, there is no chemotherapy unless, I don't know, you're dealing with chemotherapy from 10 years ago that is somehow still viable. And then, of course, how do you get that? How do you treat it? All those things. And of course, chemotherapy is something that, you need to go in for. And, it's like you have to go in certain times and all that stuff. And like I said, my mother, I watched her have to go through, multiple rounds of it. And
it's harsh on the body too.
Yeah. And in other ways, it's sometimes worse than the disease itself.
Yeah. Your body's trying to fight off not only the chemo, but also the disease. And it's working double time, and you have to constantly be feeding yourself, taking care of yourself. Obviously, being treated, it has to be cleaned wherever is injected into and how it's purposely injected to. I've had a lot of family that had that. My aunt passed away from lung cancer, my father from colon cancer, my grandfather from gallbladder cancer. So cancer is a very hard thing, and it's hard to watch, especially when we're seeing somebody go through it. But in the age of where this fictitious world is, where it's like, who are we going to rely on? If King E was stuck back in Alexandria when Deanna was still around and they had Porch Dick as the doctor, he might have survived because they had some sort of modern means. Now they're stuck at Hilltop at this point?
Well, I don't know. I would think that Ezekiel would be able to go back to Alexandria, but Porch Dick was a surgeon, and I think, I'm not sure what, I have to go back to season 8 to see, but I don't think Sadiq was a surgical resident. No. I know he was a resident. I just don't remember of what. So, whereas Porch Dick, was an actual surgeon.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So, and unlike Denise, who had some surgical training, but switched disciplines to psychiatry, he was a full surgeon. So,
yeah.
But again, surgery is only part of that. He wasn't an oncologist, right? So, so it's a little different. Although the doctor in Fear, he had an oncology rotation, if I remember correctly. So anyway, so the other thing, two things I was going to mention, poor little piggy. I mean, we have to shed a little tear for the cute little piggy that, it's not so much that he died, because, she was hunting, and, it's just a thing, right?
Yeah.
But that the poor little piggy died,
by the hands of the walkers.
At the hands of the walkers. Like, nobody got to eat him, but a bunch of people that were already dead. So that's what, to me, made it sad.
Yeah.
And because I thought it was nice how Kelly kind of like honored him before, I say him, I don't know if it was him or not, but honored the little pig before she killed it, right? She petted him a little bit, and then she was like thanking him for giving his life for her and for them. right? Because that's kind of the way things work, But anyway, that the walkers got him. That to me, that's the real sad part about it. That he died for nothing, And I have to say that it was sad, and I'm surprised nobody else mentioned it, but it was sad that Amelia and Milo died, especially that the way that they died. Milo, he didn't have much to say. He's a pretty quiet kid, but he's cute, and we didn't really know much about Amelia, but like Brandon talk about psychopaths. Clearly, this is a guy that like he was trying to show sympathy, but he didn't really show any sympathy to them. He didn't mean anything he was saying. His whole thing, he was going to kill them, and like unlike Alpha, he might have been a psychopath, but he was a dumb psychopath.
Yeah, he wasn't very good at his job.
No. So, but anyway, I thought it was sad because, like, all things aside, say what you want about Negan, he would not kill a kid, and that was something that Brandon just didn't understand. And I don't think he would kill a defenseless, what he would consider to be a defenseless, mother and child. So they would have been someone that he would have tried to protect. Negan would have tried to protect. So that, to me, that's what makes it sad. Anyway. All right, let's move on to our feedback.
We can talk about it. Done talking. Time to listen.
All right, so we've got a couple of voicemails this week. First is from Steve.
Hello, Walking Dead Talk Through. This is Steve, and this is for What It Always Is. A few thoughts on Negan, and then a thought about Aaron here. I found it really interesting that Brandon is talking about Negan telling stories, and that the stories of Negan over these last, I guess it would be, about 8.5 or 7.5, 8 years, have become kind of mythologized in a way, and that people kind of have the stories a little wrong or not exactly correct, and they've been blown out of proportion probably. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I like what we saw from Negan in this episode. We saw that he can fight still, and that we saw his interaction with Milo, I think was the young boy's name, and just that way of interacting with him that we've not seen. We've seen a little bit of that with Judith and but we see now that there's definitely something in his background of working with kids, whether it's exactly like what the comics showed, or if it's going to end up being something different. But I really like that we're seeing those more sides of him, and of course what's going to happen now that he's kind of found the Whisperers. And Aaron's character is confusing me. I think I've said this every week about Aaron's character. It's a little confusing. A week ago, he wants to kill Negan for what he did to the love of his life, or what his part in what happened to his lover many, many years ago. But yet here's this Whisperer right in front of him who it's only been recently that the Whisperers have attacked them and killed members, and he's kind of making peace with one of them. I don't know what was his goal there. Was he? What's his goal? I mean, obviously we know it looks like Alpha is going to try to kind of use him or use her, use Gamma to get to him. So I ran a little long, so can't wait to hear what you guys thought. Talk to you later.
Well, thank you so much, Steve. As usual, great voicemail. All right. And I liked your point about the mythology that is now starting to show. It's something that we saw a little bit earlier this season, like, for example, Judith telling the story about Rick. And that was a bit of mythology, but I think I want to say that we've heard something like this earlier, but I can't remember when or where, except for the Judith reference. But this one, of course, was a Negan mythology. And about your point about Aaron, of course, he's got issues with Negan because of Eric and Eric's death in that Savior's War, but he also has issues with the Whisperers because of Jesus. And I won't play the sound effect this time. I'll give you guys a break. I want to, but I won't. That's why it makes it interesting that, like, was that his intention to reach out like that, like when he sees when he sees Gamma, and we don't like, and I'm trying to figure out like how the contamination of the water comes in. There's actually a point that I remember seeing in the feedback where this kind of fits in, but it makes me wonder what the intent is there, both on what Gamma and Alpha are doing, but also like, was there any like strong intent? Like, was Aaron there to try to make contact, or was he trying to like use some of his skills from the United Nations time, or where whatever it was he worked for, UNICEF, or I don't know, whatever NGO he worked for. I guess it wasn't United Nations, but anyway, I know that he had to do a lot of difficult, negotiations in his past. So anyway, I don't know if that was intention, but is that the way we're going at this point? And I have more to say on this in my feedback from additional notes that is worth bringing up later. Do you have anything you want to bring up about Steve's feedback?
No. I'm sure you have a lot to say later.
I do. So yes, I wrote notes, copious notes. All right, so let's move on. So we got a short voicemail and then a bunch of feedback from LT. But first, the short voicemail.
Hello, boys. It's LT. I wanted to leave you some voicemail for Walking Dead Talk Through. I already sent in most of my feedback, but I just had to leave you voice for one thing. Little pig, let me in! That was my yell woohoo moment. Looking forward to the show this week, guys.
I love that.
I know, I did too. And that was a great imitation, LT. Thank you so much. All right, so we've got some written feedback as well from LT. I'll start it. So why was Kelly wandering alone in the woods? That actually comes up in my feedback. Aaron, Gamma, and the Creek Walkers. And I should mention, there's a reason why I'm holding it back. You'll know why when I get to it. Aaron, Gamma, and the Creek Walkers. This is a classic siege warfare strategy, dumping dead things in the water supply. But they are going to need to keep dumping bodies to make it really effective. Plus, if they are using a simple water filter system, they should be okay. The filter is well within Eugene's skill set. That's kind of what I was thinking myself, because, like dead things in the water supply, I mean, that's not exactly an uncommon thing. Mind you, dead walkers that are dying of a plague that causes them to walk the earth after dying and have an insatiable hunger for live flesh is something that's uncommon. But like dead animals falling in the water is not exactly an uncommon thing.
Yeah.
Negan and the fanboy. I could see there was some hesitancy from Negan when Brandon was talking, and I really liked how he got his back up when the guy was smack talking Rick and Carl. I saw his change in demeanor when he changed into the bus to save the mom and the kid. It was well acted, showing the way he kept looking at Brandon when he wanted Negan to be old Negan. Then, when Negan came back from the firewood run, this is where I saw the change to the hybrid of old Negan and new Negan. Someone should have told the fanboy that Negan does not like people messing with kids. The bits of Magna and Yumiko. We found out more about how they met, and now, after the fact, we get the feeling that Magna lied. Add that to the stash of stolen stuff in the woods. The stash bugs me only in that she seems to be thinking that Hilltop is so fragile that she needs to have a bug out plan. Not a wholly bad idea, but stealing stuff to make it happen is just not cool. I would agree with that.
And he continues on saying, so Alpha didn't shank Gamma over the bandage. I'm really on edge wondering where that bit is going to go. And I was bringing that up earlier, and I feel the same way. I have a funny feeling that's going to come back onto her, and Alpha's gonna use that against her or do something regarding that. Continues on saying, finally, I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what will happen, but seeing Negan and Lucille too going out whisperer hunting made me yell, especially that very last line. Next week is going to be big. And oh, yes, it will be.
Yes, it will. Yeah, and you were saying about you think that she might hold Gamma accountable to that. I think that it is something that I thought about earlier, and I mentioned it probably in episode 2 about Gamma kind of becoming like a double agent kind of thing, and it looks like that is definitely going to happen in some way, either intentionally or unintentionally. I don't know. But and for that matter, if she's sending Gamma in to like show off her feminine wiles or something like that, that's probably not going to work.
No,
because
yeah,
it's just not going to work on Aaron. Might work on another guy, but won't work on him.
Eugene maybe, but not.
Yeah, that's so true. Actually, it would work on Eugene. Yeah, I never thought. Oh God, I don't even want to finish that. We don't need to bring in necrophilia or anything. But anyway, I could see it working on him, but I think Aaron has a lot more emotional intelligence and better social skills than in Eugene. So,
yeah.
But anyway, more on this again later. Let's move on to Dietta's feedback. She says, I originally thought Negan was seeing dead people like Carol at first because of the way Brandon was lurking and popping out. It just looked real creepy. At first, I didn't know who it was, but Brian said it was the guy who was guarding Negan. Yes, it was. We had seen him, I think, in the first episode, maybe the last episode as well. But definitely, we've seen him before. Shoulder shrug. You mean to tell me this psycho ex-savior was living at Alexandria and nobody noticed how much of an asshole he was? I find it hard to believe he was harboring all those old Negan tendencies and no one picked up on them. Well, I'll just stop there. It's because he's a psychopath. So psychopaths have the tendency of being able to hold in that stuff. And, like Ted Bundy. That's a good example. And it was so funny. Where did I see that? Somebody put a picture comparing Ted Bundy and Brandon, and There
It
was,
was
a
on a
resemblance.
messenger page. Yeah, you were on a messenger, and people were like posting what it looked like.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. But there definitely is a physical resemblance, but I think Ted Bundy a lot smarter than Brandon. Brandon didn't seem to be the the brightest bulb in the whatever the sharpest tack
in the bunch.
Yeah. Thinking face. He was probably the one who let Negan out. Well, it seems like he wasn't, just based on that question that came up. But because otherwise, why would he ask the question? Because he's,
he asked.
Anyway.
He was like, "How did you get out?" He literally asked Negan that.
Yeah.
Behind him as they were walking. So, and then Negan said something to the effect of, "You don't need to know those things."
Right.
So I'm sure that will come out probably next episode if they segue away from Whisperer Camp, where Negan is being, indoctrinated or just being tortured. Who knows?
The possibility that it's Carol, I think, seems to be all that more possible to me. That seems to be the best fit.
Yeah, because she's been elusive. We have not seen her anywhere around in those areas that much.
Yeah. Like I said in my last comment, how many people have keys or access to this so-called jail? The Negan fanatic actually thought they were going to recreate the Saviors after what? How many years has it been since everyone was Negan? Come on, Brandon. You are a true dumbass if you really refuse to see that Negan has changed for the better. When Brandon mentioned Rick, then Carl, Negan was about to let him have it then, but it took him killing the people Negan was trying to help to get Brandon dead. I'm glad Negan took him out of his misery, and so am I.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward. Negan and Lucille versus the Whisperers playing baseball with walkers' heads. I loved it. What the hell is wrong with Magda? That is a question that I had last week, and I still have, but not as much. And what is this bizarre story segment with her and Yumiko? She's mad because Yumiko called them back from fighting, and she was her lawyer in her former life. Weren't you guys just all kissy and stuff? Now you're mad at each other for what? Oh yeah, she and Kelly were stealing supplies from Hilltop again. Why? What is the point of the story out of the blue? Yeah, she has a criminal past, but does that really matter now in the apocalypse? I find it hard to believe Yumiko and Magna haven't discussed their past at some point in time before now. And who really cares now? Well, yeah, that was the one part about it that I had questioned myself. It's like after 13 years, this didn't come up yet. Like 13 years, you still thought that she was innocent. I mean, everything that we've seen about her behavior would suggest that she wasn't innocent, that she was guilty of whatever it was. So,
yeah.
But we're just learning now that that Yumiko was her lawyer, and I'd wondered that. I think I brought that up myself. Like, where was she her lawyer? Because they both have accents, so it couldn't have been in America. That'd be weird. It could have been, I guess, but it would seem to suggest maybe in the UK or something. But I think I mentioned that last week, didn't I?
Yeah.
I love seeing Daryl and Connie together again. I am shipping this couple. Yeah, and unfortunately, I have a feeling she's going to die, and we're not going to see that. I enjoyed the story about him and Merle fishing, then him having to save Merle from drowning because he was drunk. Daryl even promises Connie to keep the supply, stealing Magna and Kelly a secret. Love is in the air. I'll just add. Aww. I'll also add. But it's probably going to be more like. Aww.
But he still has dog.
Anyway, Aaron is all over the place. First, it's let's go after the Whisperers. But when he sees Gamma in the woods, he's all nice and gives her bandages for a cut hand. Gamma is giving flashbacks of her sister. Is she wavering from the Whisperers and Alpha? I think she might be. We shall see. Bit. Everyone looking out for Negan, even in the dark. Why? If they didn't find him during the day, then suspend the search until daylight. I would agree with that. There's so much. Actually, we see this brought up again. Actually, you bring this point up again yourself. You say, now Sadiq and Daryl are leaving for Alexandria at night. All this romping around in the woods at night is just not smart. That's my point exactly. Overall, it's another satisfying episode. Well, thank you so much, Dieta, as usual.
Yeah, it's better than Fear.
Anything is better than Fear. Which I find so tragic because, like I say, so many of the characters on that show I really
We all love the characters. It's just the writing. It's so sad. Glennis from Toronto says, Kelly's predicament revealed that Magna and Kelly had been stealing from Hilltop, mostly because of Magna's distrust of everyone, even when Hilltop helped Magna's group out, like Strand in Fear the Walking Dead, just in case things go south. So, yeah, I kind of caught that from how they were acting, but you would think we would have seen this over time, and that's what's so disturbing. It's like, oh, out of the blue, by the way, oh, we've been stealing food and hiding it. And to me, it should have been something slowly or slightly alluded to in previous episodes, or maybe towards the end of season 9. But, yeah, better late than never, I guess. It could have been till the very end of the season, be like, oops, we found this. She continues on saying, at least Daryl knows the truth who stole from Hilltop and trusts Connie to handle that situation with Magna, if it crops up later and causes any issues, which is true because, he trusts Connie and they like each other. Kelly was lucky that Dog was part of the search party, and I do agree, but I don't remember seeing Dog.
Yeah, we saw Dog.
Huh.
Yeah, we definitely saw Dog.
Oh, there was that one moment that I remember him showing the dog away. Okay.
Yeah.
Aaron helping Gamma. Aaron is supposed to be a good judge of character with his vetting of people to join Alexandria. So we'll see how that pans out, with Alpha getting Gamma to probably take off her Whisperer mask and wear her own face as a mask of sorts and infiltrate Alexandria. There's your your double agent right there, Brian. But there may be the chance that Alpha's plan backfires there, since Gamma was shown to be thinking on what happened to her sister. So it looks as if she's having regrets. But it's kind of similar to her own sister, when her sister was convinced by Alpha and then going after Alpha herself. Hopefully Gamma's a little bit more strategic than her own sister was, and not being so emotional. So hopefully that happens. It'll be great. It's not like an Enid thing and we just kept suspecting, and at least it's right in their face. So with that damming up the creek with the walkers and walker guts, Negan drunk from the creek and he coughed later when in the bus. Rosita over the radio was said to be suffering from a bug, so maybe she too is sick from drinking tainted water. So has Ezekiel got throat cancer, or is it actually an acute infection from drinking tainted water?
Or tainted meat.
Oh, it's not Dale. Oh, wait, I'm thinking comic book, sorry. Tainted meat!
Tainted meat.
No. It is possible that Rosita is definitely, she got the tainted water, so we'll see. Definitely with Ezekiel, he knows from his family history of thyroid cancer, so we know that's a given. I'm just hoping that, we don't see anybody else suffer from this. But obviously, we know that, it's alluded that Rosita will be the one because she got the bug.
Yeah, it's definitely possible that that it could be an infection. I mean, we don't know how long they've been tainting the water, and we don't know what could. I mean, it's possible, and my joke earlier about Dr. Pimple Popper, which, like I say, it's kind of inappropriate to say the thing, but it's gallows humor. But I mean, it could be, it could end up, being like fear with Grace. But I don't know. I tend to think that it's probably his time is numbered. Anyway, she continues. She says, Alpha deals swiftly with any questioning of her authority and tactics with her horrifying live demo of showing Nyx can slow down a person just as well as a total onslaught of walkers. So the Whisperers are to blame for the creek, border, tree, as Alpha stated, but the walker groups sent onto Alexandria and Hilltop weren't mentioned, so I suspect that may still be a different group. I don't know. I maybe not hinted directly, but certainly, I think indirectly, it's certainly implied. That was my take on it. What about you? Do you also think it's implied there?
Yeah, I think it was just implied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brandon was asking Negan how he got out. So it wasn't Brandon who let him out. So it could have still been Daryl who let Negan out. And maybe Daryl or whoever had a few words in Negan's ear of how to get back into the good books with the Alexandrians by going undercover with the Whisperers in the Whisperers group. When Brandon revealed Negan's bat and jacket, the music snippet was from The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 16 and Season 7, Episode 1. Yes. Well, that's little Negan's, his little, Negan's song. That, do-do, do-do, do-do. I don't know. The music that we're talking about. With those paced beats that played out when Negan was pacing up and down the line of kneeling survivors. Yeah, I mean, I definitely pick up on that. And I've picked up on that whenever Negan is, showing that kind of side of him. That's kind of like Negan's music, like I say. I think we had seen it in different times in Season 7 especially, and Season 8 as well. So it's kind of Negan's overture, I guess you could say. It's sad that Negan bonded with that kid with his plain and nuts story, only to come onto that tragic scene with both of them dead. Brandon got what he deserved, although it did show Negan what his previous actions can breed a whole lot of bad. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I would agree with that. Literally, the whole mythology kind of thing again. Clearly, the lore, the story, that gets distorted over time, and killing Rick, killing Negan, killing Nick. Rick getting killed, or certainly
losing
Negan
an arm.
Carl. I mean, he wasn't going to kill Carl. He would have done everything not to kill Carl, even though he came close to killing Carl there in the Season 7 finale. I don't know if he was going to actually do it. Certainly seemed like he was going to do it, but I don't think he wanted to do it. I don't know. We'll have to cross that bridge when it comes. But anyway, you are going to take the rest of the way.
Yep.
A little bit more.
It's creepy that Brandon got the Savior's whistle just right after killing the mom and the kid. Which is true. But it was not entirely 100%, wasn't
his first whistling wasn't right, but I think in the end he pretty much had it.
He had an idea, yeah. To me, I don't know, maybe I was just thinking back to the original and how the whistling was in the original. Negan's little pig rhyme was a callback to The Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 4, Service, when he was Lucille knocking on the Alexandria gate to be let in. And oh yes, that jacket and bat are back in the rightful place, like a second skin, or quote-unquote mask, for Negan. I think Negan's intentions are to help the survivors by infiltrating the Whisperer's ranks, although a bit of doubt there, 70-30, as initially, he didn't want to cross over their border with Brandon. But
you go cross my border?
Yeah. But he may think he's indirectly to blame for the mother and son's death, so made up his mind to go back to the dark side and somehow deserves the Whisperers. So the question is, will Negan take off his Negan mask persona once he's dealt with the Whisperers?
Yeah, I don't know.
All I know is the story in the comics. The way Negan has been Negan, and he didn't really change. He wasn't changed in Alexandria in the comics. In this, we saw some sort of humanity within him. So I think the character in the show is a bit torn. And I think he did this to do something for Alexandria because of his guilt about the kid. And showing how, hey, I need to do something. And if old Negan's got to do something, he's got to do something to these people that are creating issues in Alexandria and Hilltop. Who better to do it than somebody who can get it done himself?
Do you think that he is a better character in the TV show versus the comic book?
I think they humanized him far better in the show than in the comic. In the comic, he was still, a jackass.
Yeah.
He was, the F-bomb here and there, every other word, even still. When he was in...
I totally forgot about that. Why did I forget about that? Because just in case you've never seen it, I know you have, but in the season 6
extended
Blu-ray.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't extended. I don't think they ever released it for streaming, but the season 6 season finale, there's an alternate version of it where it, that the whole last scene with Negan is an extended cut, and he's throwing F-bombs all over the place.
Yep.
Which they had, it sounded like they were going to do that for all of season 7, but
never happened.
The Blu-ray, they didn't do that, which I don't know. I'm not sure why. Maybe, as always, people complain.
Very true.
Even when they shouldn't complain, they do. And
well, to get back to the idea of Negan, in the comic, he was a horse's ass, in my opinion.
Right.
It's just the way he was. But it was one of those horse's asses that you had to enjoy because, yes, it was a comic book villain character. But to portray that in a show... And they did that a few times, and they did bring that character out, and there were certain scenes where that element was like verbatim, like you said, when at the lineup and after the aftermath, and he's got the F-bombs galore, and I counted like maybe 12 F-bombs out of that when they did that on that deleted, or it's not a deleted, it's the alternate scene.
Right.
And that's just the character, but every word, and they even stated, how do we get this character out on TV? And they had a word around it. And I think they probably got people complaining about because you don't really hear certain words dictated anymore. They don't do and AMC was allotted a certain amount of F-bombs to be played on TV, but we have not seen any in a long time.
Well, didn't Preacher have some?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
they got them, but it seems Walking Dead has not.
Yeah, well, were they for some reason they chose
not to.
Probably, I think it's probably because they had a big target on themselves, and they just thought that it was just one more thing that they didn't need to deal with. Because, what we had heard is that all of season 7, they had these alternate scenes that they shot with Negan where he was F-bombing this and, MFing that. And, like he was swearing left, right, and center. And then we never saw them. And we assume that, come season 8, they never released that stuff. I mean, maybe they kept that stuff and maybe they'll release it when the whole show goes, is released as a box set, after it's done. But I don't know. For whatever reason, they never did this. Like, I think in a lot of ways, AMC, like a lot of other networks, AMC wants to be a pay-per-view type deal, but they're stuck by, being on cable, and there isn't any FCC direct laws, but there's kind of like inferred or implied or, laws that, not laws, but just guidelines that they try to uphold. Because like broadcast TV, you can't swear, but there's no cable rules per se. But then, for something like HBO and, Cinemax and Showtime and all that stuff, they do swear and they do show, naked people and stuff like that because it's pay. And you'd think that maybe AMC Premiere with their AMC Premiere, maybe they would let that stuff out, but they don't. That, to me, that would be something in the extended episodes, which brings me to my next point. And Mark, we're going to skip your notes here because this belongs at the end.
All right, cool.
Okay. So he's got, Mark has something to say about stuff that we see in the coming attractions or whatever. So we'll just hold off to the end because I know some people are kind of sensitive to that. So we'll just hold that back to the end. Anyway, about Ezekiel, all things aside, I think he's a goner. I think we aren't going to see him survive. There's probably going to be a big battle, and we're probably going to see Rosita die, from this bug. It seems. Although it could end up not being true. But Connie, Luke, and Kelly and Ezekiel, those 4, and maybe what's her name, Jules. Either Luke or Jules are going to die.
Yeah, definitely Luke. I have a funny feeling Luke is gone or too.
They certainly did seem to sell that last week.
Yeah.
So anyway, I have a feeling that I think that the Whisperers are going to be done at the end of this half season. I think they're going to move on to the next,
big thing.
We know that we know certain things that are coming up. So I really think that they're going to do this, but maybe they won't. Maybe they'll end at the end of the season and not the mid-season. But I don't know. I can't see Negan being with the Saviors for another 10 episodes. I just don't see it. I said Saviors. I meant Whisperers.
I'll say
I just
2.
don't. I see 2, 2 or part of a third. So that's why I think that we're gonna come to an end with this.
The Whisperer Ward definitely will have to end by mid-season. The reason why I state this is because AMC got backlash because of the whole Savior fight and everything. That lasted a whole season.
Well, not only that, I mean, was a season of Negan, like just subverting and keeping them down for a whole season. And then so the Saviors were 2.5 seasons of the show.
Pretty
right?
much. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause it was a build up of the Saviors in the, mid season 6. And then, them being, kind of servants to the Saviors in season 7, and then a war in all of season 8. And I just think that we got them at the mid-season finale of season 9. I don't see it going into season 11.
No.
So, and just given the pace, I really think that they're either going to end at episode 8 or episode 9. And maybe they'll do a cliffhanger and it'll finish in episode 9, or they'll end it in episode 8, kind of like the governor's story did in season 4, but we'll see. Okay, so I've hinted at this all through the episode. There was an extended version of the episode on AMC Premiere, and I didn't catch this right away. I was just searching through, and sure enough, I discovered, hey, there's an extended version. So the regular version that is on AMC Premiere, it turns out, without commercials, 46 minutes and 57 seconds. The extended version was 53 minutes and 5 seconds. So an extra 6 minutes and 8 seconds. So quite a bit of extra stuff in there. So what did this consist of, you ask? Well, and it's kind of funny. I was asked about this on forum, our group, Facebook group that I belong to and Mark belongs to. I said, you think I'm going to tell you? Listen to the podcast and find out. Sorry, Pake. But, I'm not going to give away that good stuff just for that.
That's because I think he just watched the regular broadcast version. I don't think he had AMC Premiere, so.
Yeah, I probably didn't, but like I say, I wasn't going to just give it away. So there was a longer scene of Negan and Brandon talking in the forest, and it was more of kind of Brandon asking questions about the Saviors, and that was the big thing, I think, in there, right? That's the scene where Alden and Earl are talking, and they're basically saying that the Whisperers did this. It goes a lot longer. We actually see Adam, the baby that Earl and what's her name? Was it Tammy
Rose?
Tammy Rose. Okay. That they got from the Whisperers. Anyway, he gets into a story with Alden, how he talks about Vietnam and how there was a thing with their his commanding officer where they saw a cache of weapons or something, and they didn't do anything. And then 2 days later, it was they had attacked, as they call him, Charlie. Anyway, that sounded really funny. Anyway, the enemy attacked and killed 155 of their soldiers. So it was basically relaying, fool me once, shame on me. Or I always get that wrong. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
Scene. But that was completely killed out. There was a completely deleted scene with Gamma and Beta, and it was after Gamma got the bandage, and Gamma was, heading back to the Whisperers, main group, and she takes off her mask, and the the Guardians kind of seem like they're coming towards her, and Beto was right there and he kind of saved her. So he redirects the zombies so that they don't spot her, and she puts her mask on. There was a longer scene with Connie and Kelly where she apologizes for the stash. And she also mentions that that's why she was out there hunting for the pig alone, is that basically she was going to take the pig and take it for the stash, which, like I said, either they were going to turn it into pig jerky or something, because otherwise, I don't know how they could.
They would have to cure that pig
they would have to
cut it. Yeah,
right. Exactly. How would they cure the pig if they were just storing the stuff? So, and there was also a another deleted scene with Gamma and Aaron. That was after Alpha said to Gamma that they can use that relationship to their advantage. Aaron and Gamma meet up again. And Gamma gives back the unused portions of bandage to Aaron. And he turns on and gives her some medicine for the cut. So there's quite a bit there. It was like, 2 extra scenes and 3 longer scenes that were in that. So interesting.
Yeah.
I guess that's a premiere thing. I don't know, but
I think it is. Well, it's been that way for a while, but this is the longest we've ever gotten. But these are usually things that we see on the Blu-ray packaging. And now that Blu-ray and a lot of physical media is becoming far and far less, it seems like this is the way to go to entice people to come over to the premiere services through the app, which I agree with, but...
Yeah. One thing I've noticed is that in the past, like the Blu-ray used to be on sale for probably like close to 2 months before they would make the season available on Netflix. And now it's like more like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So there's the Blu-ray edition, is... Well, I mean, they still sell it, but its exclusivity is not there. Of course, the extended scenes and all that is something that you need to get.
Yeah, the extended packages through Blu-ray are still there, but not the content isn't as big as it used to be. I used to, excuse me. When they would come out with the limited edition Blu-ray series, I would get them because they would have Todd McFarlane specifics. They did that from season 2 all the way till, I would say, season 7. And I have them all. I have the season 1, which comes with like a mask and everything. It's a gatefold. It was very cheap for its time for season 1. And they became very collectible. And now you don't even get that anymore. They just give you either a lenticular packaging or something basic now. So they kind of cease and desisted because they're starting to see... I work in electronic retail, and basically I always know when that's coming out. I always pre-order it, and I always get it. I still get the Blu-ray packages, but... It doesn't hold as much as it did when you had that limited edition. Now, people are not coming and flocking to the stores on Tuesdays, which is new release day for movies and TV shows. And honestly, it's funny. My birthday is the end of August, and they always release The Walking Dead at that week, the week of my birthday, which I take off, and that's like a gift to myself. But this year they did it like a week or 2 earlier, which I was shocked at. So even still,
the season started a week or 2 earlier as well.
Yeah.
So that might be part of it, but
yeah, they've changed it where physical media is now to the point of slowly decaying. It's only for people who are true enthusiasts that want to have a physical copy. So,
well, and the thing is, like with The Walking Dead, for example, there isn't a 4K Blu-ray.
no, there isn't. It's only
And there-
Blu-ray.
Yeah, and there isn't a 4K streaming for that matter. But to me, like, that would be something that would make it advantageous to get. Like, if you could get a 4K version of The Walking Dead, that would be worth it to me, But I've had a few of the Blu-rays, but yeah, I think the last one I bought was season 6. I haven't bought any since. And I just don't need it anymore. Like I think the last Blu-ray that I bought, ironically, was Star Trek Discovery. I bought season 1. And it's still sitting on my shelf. Like I have not opened it because there's no need to open it, because that's the other thing. All the features and that you would get, I get on the extras for CBS All Access. Like I don't, there may be additional features that are not on there, but I've not heard anything that I definitely needed to get. But anyway, let's just keep going. Just a couple more things I wanted to bring up. Hissers was a new term for zombies that we hadn't heard before. And I think we maybe only heard it one other time. But again, like, this to me is a sign of things. Like, I think even what's her name? Not Connie, Kelly, I think even called them walkers. But Magna still calls them by their term sickos, which I think we'd heard at some point during season 9.
Yeah.
But haven't really heard it since. And it's something I noticed on the bus. Did they call it a washroom? Because that's what it's normally called outside of the US. Normally in the US, of course, it's called a restroom, which always struck me as odd, since you can't rest in most restrooms.
Nobody really wants to rest.
Nor would you want to, because, like, going to sleep in a restroom, ew. There's bodily functions going on there.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I actually call it a washroom every once in a while, and I have clients that ask me, going, washroom? What's that?
Yeah.
I'm like, the bathroom.
It occurred to me that Magna has a bit of a similar story to Madison. Both characters killed, in their youth. It seemed like Magna might have been a little younger since she was tried. Madison, of course, was a little kid when she killed her father. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
And last, I already brought up this last thing. So
yeah.
Now I look at it. Okay, so let's move on to news, ratings, and info.
There's a couple weird stories on the news.
Unfortunately, when it comes to ratings, we are getting very close to a couple of, barriers, a couple of lines that we don't want to cross. In the 18 to 49 coveted demographic, The Walking Dead got a 1.03 with a total of 3.086 million viewers. So it is now getting very close to going under the 1.0 in the 18 to 49 and going under 3 million viewers. I wouldn't be even surprised if this happens next episode. But at this point, seeing this rating at this point, I'm thinking if it doesn't happen by the end of the half season, I would think in season 10B, we're going to see a sub 1.0 Walking Dead and a sub 3 million. And, it's unfortunate because the season's been really good, and I think it deserves higher ratings than what it's getting. But so many people have left the show. You know,
it's been 10 years. Well, it's coming on 10 years, I should say, because it started in 2010.
The funny thing is, I was looking at this because I've mentioned it a couple of times. My wife and I have been watching on Netflix Grey's Anatomy, and for years and years and years, Grey's got really good, ratings on ABC, and for the time that Walking Dead has been on, its ratings have been quite a bit better, at least in the 18 to 49. And now we have reached a point. I looked it up. Grey's is higher, or at least most weeks anyway, is higher, certainly higher in the total viewers and higher in the 18 to 49. So anyway, last week it was a 1.12 and 3.305 million viewers. So, down, around 10-ish%. I didn't do the exact figures, but it's down. And it keeps going down. So, like I said, wouldn't be surprised next week we're under 1 and under 3 million. Talking Dead was also lower. It got a 0.36 in the 18 to 49 with 1.164 million viewers. That's down from 0.38, certainly not as low of a drop, and 1.253 million viewers. So, like I said, not as low, but lower. I didn't really pick up any news. I did watch the Talking Dead segment today, but I didn't really pick up anything on there. The one thing that I noticed, and it's kind of like it fits with what we were talking about earlier, and that is that on Talking Dead, I could swear that Angel Theory, when she was describing Lauren Ridloff, said as who played Connie. And the captions say play, but I think I heard played. And
I rewatched and I heard her say played Connie as well. So they could have just easily said, all right, we're going to put this in.
But it seemed to me it was a little bit of a slip up. Like, it wasn't so emphatic. There was also another point where Eleanor Matsuura, it looked, actually it was in Talking Dead. She said this. She said, she was talking about her discussing how their character was and the relationship between Magna and Yumiko, and how she was a lawyer. And she said, discussed it with Angela, but the caption, and it sort of sounded like she said Andrew. I'm like, Andrew Lincoln? That doesn't make any sense. But after listening to it about 4 or 5 times in a row, I think what she actually said was Angela, not Andrew.
Yeah.
Unless Andrew Chambliss has something to do with Walking Dead, and let's hope not.
No, I highly doubt it.
All right. That's all I've got. So unless you have something else for news, why don't you tell people how to interact with us?
Well, we want to encourage you to follow us on Twitter, and you can find us at Walking Dead GSM. And to submit your theories and feedback, most people post in our designated episode thread in our Facebook group, which would be facebook.com/groups/WalkingDeadGSM. We'd like to encourage you to use our new email address, which would be walkingdead@talkthroughmedia.com. Our new feedback form is at talkthroughmedia.com/feedback. You could also call us at 216-232-6146. Again, that phone number is 216-232-6146.
And that's how we got the voicemail from LT.
Awesome.
This week. Yeah.
And that's how Steve Brown does it. That's how Megan did it last week. So obviously we do get our voicemail, so please send them in. Deadline for next episode is set for a regular day and time, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central, Tuesday, November 12th. You could also leave feedback at facebook.com/talkthroughmedia.
And give us a review there.
Oh,
for the
definitely.
network.
Yeah. And the best way you could support us is our new Patreon, which you could find at patreon.com/Walking Dead Talkthrough. We'd like to thank our Patreon supporters, Stephen Brown, Alex Baelish, and Lawrence Todd. We lost one. Sorry if we didn't meet with your expectations, but please do come back.
Yeah, so we lost one. So I was sad when I saw that. I'm like, what do we do? Anyway.
Well, remember to share our posts on Facebook and Twitter when we post them, or just tell a friend. Word of mouth is the best way to get us some new listeners. You know, it's like you tell a friend, and they tell a friend, and they tell a friend, and she said this, and she said that, and he said this. Word of mouth is the best way to get anything going. And please subscribe to us in Apple Podcasts or your podcast client of choice. While you're there, just like Brian stated, please just give us a rating. You could find that in Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, I think Spotify. I'm not sure about TuneIn, but they're out there.
Yeah, anywhere you can give a comment or leave a review, that is helpful. It has been a long time, actually, since we've gotten a review for The Walking Dead Talkthrough on Apple Podcasts. It's been over a year. So help us out by giving us a review. That would be very helpful, especially if you've picked up the podcast recently. Could help out, other people find us and move us slightly up in the rankings of the plethora of past and present Walking Dead podcasts that exist.
You could actually hear us on YouTube now. So that's a new
Yes.
thing as well. So I suggest and recommend you guys look into YouTube. I have a tendency of watching a lot of, or having podcasts play through my home theater, through my Apple TV, through YouTube. And it's fun.
Yeah, we started that recently. So that's all on the channel for Talk Through Media. And, we've just gotten that channel together. So it takes a little bit of listens or should I say views and subscribers before YouTube will give us our own URL, custom URL. But if you just search for Talk Through Media in YouTube, you should be able to find us.
So where else can people listen to us other than here, Ryan?
Well, we released the episode for the first short trek that I mentioned last week. That has come out on the Star Trek Discovery podcast feed. And you can go to StarTrekDiscoveryPodcast.com or just simply go to TalkThroughMedia.com and find us there. And I had mentioned earlier that the Star Trek, or last week, or may actually been a couple of weeks now, that the Star Trek Picard cast is available on Apple Podcasts, and Spotify and Apple. I said Apple Podcasts, but I meant Google Podcasts. It's available on most major podcast clients at this point. I will continue to extend that to not just for that podcast, but for all the podcasts. Try to make sure that we're on all podcast clients. But Ruthie and I are going to record our next episode for the Star Trek Discovery podcast, covering the Trouble with Edward, the next or the last short trek that was coming out, and then I believe it's next Thursday night, the 14th, there'll be another short trek. So we're going to try to release the current one, or record and release the current one before that one comes out. So, and then sometime after that, the next few weeks, probably we'll do another episode of the Star Trek Picard cast. So anyway, you can find both those podcasts at talkthroughmedia.com. And we have a Patreon as well, patreon.com/Brian and Ruthie. So join us. And we actually got one of our Patreon subscribers up their pledge today. So thank you so much on that one.
Awesome.
Not the talk through, but the Star Trek one. Mark, what about Panels to Pixels?
Well, you guys also, you could not just hear me here, but you could hear me on Panels to Pixels. That could be found on the Next Level Radio Online Network. Right now, we're doing Watchmen, the TV show on HBO. And this Sunday, we will be dropping our episode 3 review. So we've been having a really good time with this one. I'm enjoying it. Got a lot of social commentary of what's going on in the world today, as well as in comic book format. And this one really brought, if you're a true comic book fan and you love the original comic book, The Watchmen, it takes 35 years after the events of that particular comic, not the movie. Though you do get a movie review from Steve and I that we did just before we started doing the TV show, because both of us thought and had that thought in our head that this would be taking after the movie. But a lot of the movie is basically the comic, except for one minor ending. And if you listen to the podcasts, we actually get into that a little bit. So, and as I mentioned before, and I brought it up about Brian putting out stuff on YouTube, I have done the same thing with Panels to Pixels. You could actually see that. So you could actually just search Panels to Pixels podcast, not Panels to Pixels. Panels to Pixels podcast. If you do a search for that, you will find there will be 2 episodes up there. And one of them will be the Watchmen movie review. Last week's episode is definitely up, and I'm going to be doing that again this week for our 3rd episode. So if you guys want to just listen along, if you're interested in that idea, put it on, give a listen, and give us your feedback. It'd be amazing.
Our next episode is The Walking Dead. I should say we'll be covering The Walking Dead, Season 10, Episode 6, titled Bonds, written by, I believe he's a new co-producer on the show, Kevin Diebold, and directed by Dan Liu, who's directed a few episodes of both The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. I know he directed Season 8, Episode 4. The one where all the Kingdom guard got mowed down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Some guy. That's the title of it.
And we lost Shiva.
Yes. Not just the guards, but Shiva. The description is as follows. Carol and Daryl go on a mission together while Sadiq struggles to solve a mystery. And of course, and you know what I forgot to play today? That's
well, that was on him. That was Brandon.
Yeah. And anyway, you had some additional things that you wanted to bring up.
Oh yeah, definitely. As we saw, if you looked at the previews of next week's episode, and I think at the very end you saw Eugene talk on the radio, and you see him talking to a female. Now, mind you, there have been pictures online of Ezekiel with a bunch of people, and they're continuing their efforts outside of Alexandria and Hilltop. So in the comic, basically, and this is going to be spoilers for the comic, so you could either ignore us or move on about a minute and a half.
Ignore us. You can't ignore us.
But in the comic, they wind up getting a call from somebody who's listening in, and they go further out, and they make their way towards that person. And I find it funny because they show pictures of King Ezekiel, but we happen upon, and this character's already been confirmed, and it's called, of all things, the Princess.
Yes.
And we eventually meet Princess. And
do you think we're going to meet her next week?
I don't think we're going to meet her next week. I have a funny feeling we will be meeting her after the mid-season.
10B.
Yep, 10B. So I think that will happen towards the end, and we're going to get that plucky little character called Princess with her furry pink coat and goggles. And I see that moving on because that's more towards going the Commonwealth. So the fact that we will be able to get to see something like this is amazing to me, and that's why I think that the Whisper War will end sooner than we.
I do too.
So
I do too. And one thing that we see in the sneak peek, we see tussling with Negan and Beta.
Oh yeah,
and we also see. And this is a spoiler, so I've seen the extended, first scene or whatever of the episode on AMC Premiere, and yeah, Carol and Daryl go on a mission together to basically kill off the Guardians, so that the Alpha is vulnerable. She initially comes out there saying she's going to find Negan, which makes me think that she let out Negan, but also that she is gonna go after Alpha. So anyway, that's what I know.
So she unleashed the Negan.
Yeah. Well, we don't know that. We don't know that, but
it's a
what we do know is it A begets B, I think. So we'll see. So until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Mark.
And this is the Walking Dead Talk Through. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.